Wala. Sige, again, pag cluster sampling ha, we will divide our population into heterogeneous group. When you say heterogeneous, they have different characteristics similar to that of the true population. Di ba pag sinabi mong students of Jensen doctors, iba-iba naman yun. May babae, may lalaki, iba-iba din yung kanilang civil status or yung socioeconomic status nila, family background. So, different characteristics yon. Sa cluster sampling, i-group pa rin natin sila pero kagaya ng typical na population na magkakaiba yung kanilang characteristics. So most of the time, we group our sample according to their place or according to their school or even their region. So kagaya ng ginagawa nila sa surveys, example sa election, mga presidential balls, if they want to have a cluster sampling, tapos random sampling para valid talaga ang result and walang bias, pwede silang mag-cluster sampling. So isang cluster ang mga taga Luzon, isang cluster ang taga Visayas, and isang cluster ang mga taga Mindanao. So groups, pero heterogeneous kasi ang nasa Luzon halo-halo na, babae, lalaki, and so on. Yung age, halo-halo na din. That's what you call cluster sampling. So again, ganito yung gagawin ha for cluster sampling. So example, you will first determine your population and then group them together and form clusters. And then kung meron ka ng mga clusters, magse-select ka dyan kung anong clusters yung pipiliin mo. And sa bawat clusters, you will actually compute for the sample size. So kagaya ng ginawa kanina sa stratified sampling, after grouping them, we will also compute for the anong tawag dyan? Sample size ng each group. Dito, magko-compute pa rin tayo ng sample size for each clusters. Okay? So, pwede siya, most of the time it's according to place kasi medyo mahirap kung for example buong Pilipinas. Kung dito din naman sa Jensen, pwede nyo din gawin si cluster sampling kasi ilan ba ang population ng Jensen? Parang marami masyado. So, you can divide the population sa Jensen into clusters. Pwede natin gamitin ang mga barangays. So, like Barangay Labangal, isang cluster sila. Barangay Lagaw, isang cluster din. And kung ilan yung residents sa bawat barangay, yun yung magiging new population mo and yun yung gagamitin mo in computing the sample size for each barangay. So, I hope, klaro yun siya, class. To tell you that not all clusters will be included in the study ha. Kung na-divide natin siya for example sa different barangays here sa Jensen, 29 man siguro ta ka barangay or 26. So it does not necessarily mean na isasali mo lahat ng barangays. You can also do random sampling among the barangays. Pipili ka lang din ng ilang barangays doon. For example, according to the sample size out of 26, pag compute mo, 5 lang pala ang kailangan mo na barangay. So ira-random mo yun, pwede kang mag-fishbowl method and pipili ka ng 5. So for example, Labangal, Lagaw, Kalumpang, San Isidro, and Dajangas West. Yun yung napili mo. So yung 5 lang yun ang kukunan mo ulit ng sample size bawat barangay and yun yung magiging kasali sa study. So I hope that is clear for cluster sampling. Okay, dinesign yan sila kapag mahirap na masyado mag-perform ng random sampling kasi masyado nang marami ang iyong population. Itong multi-stage sampling, almost similar with that of the cluster sampling kasi this is done when your population is scattered over a very big geographical area. So this is done when you are doing research nationally, like you kailangan mo buong Pilipinas. So magsa-start ka for example doon sa Luzon, multi-stage siya, pwedeng mag-cluster ka muna doon sa Luzon, depende, example, ang gagamitin mo is per region, and then magko-compute ka ng sample size bawat region and magsasample ka muna doon. So magkakandak ka muna, start ka conduct ng study doon. After that, jump ka sa Visayas. You can also cluster them according to their region or according to their place, kung ano yung napili mo na way of grouping them. And then the same thing ang gagawin. That is also true if you reach Mindanao. Okay, so that is again multi-stage sampling. So ito sila lahat ang tinatawag natin class na probability sampling. Take note the keywords there, equal chance. We are giving equal chance to all the members of the population to be selected in our study. The selection process are different sa kanilang 5. I hope na nakuha nyo yung difference. Questions before tayo mag-move on kay non-probability sampling? Any question or clarification? Tapos mag-move on tayo. Wala. Mag-assume jud kung nakasabot mo ato tanan ba? This is not actually a board exam subject, but you need this for your research. Okay? Wala, sige, let's move on. Let's talk about non-probability sampling. Keywords here, no equal chance, meaning a complete opposite of the probability sampling. So again, in here, we are not actually giving chance to all members of the population to be selected. Okay? So the selection process is different. Pwedeng it's up to the judgment of the researcher himself or herself. So therefore, if we use the non-probability sampling, since no equal chance ito, then we cannot really generalize the characteristic of the population. Again, we cannot generalize the characteristic of the population. So yun yung difference nila. Pero just like with the probability sampling, meron ding different types itong non-probability. Number 1 is the purposive sampling or the judgment sampling. From the name itself, judgment, it's up to the judgment of the researcher kung isasali ba ang member ng population in the study or not. So paano siya mag-judge? Dapat may predetermined criteria based on the purpose of the study. So again, merong criteria. Pag may special or unique criteria ka sa study mo, that's the time hindi ka pwedeng mag-random sampling. Kaya kailangan mo makuha yung criteria na yon in selecting. Magiging purposive sampling lang siya. For example, the study, meron tayong study, a journey of the community pharmacist working during the pandemic. So ano daw yung experience nila in working during the pandemic. Pero take note na community pharmacist lang. Therefore, if the population is lahat ng pharmacist, hindi ka pwede mag-random sampling. Kasi yung mga pharmacist pwedeng hospital, pwedeng sa manufacturing nagtrabaho, hindi mo sila pwedeng i-include sa study mo. So meron kang purpose. Your purpose is just to know the experience of the community pharmacy. So kailangan mo silang ma-achieve. Yun yung magiging judgment mo. Oh, ito siya, community pharmacist, so pwede mo siyang isali sa study. Ito, hospital pharmacist, no, wala na siyang chance na masali sa study mo. Again, we call that purposive sampling. Kailangan ma-meet muna ang purpose ng study before siya maging part ng study mo. Again, that is purposive sampling. Non-probability sampling, walang equal chance lahat ng members ng population to be included. So I hope that is clear. Pero class, ang pag-compute ng sample size nito, ganun pa rin. Based on the, for example, since your purpose is just community pharmacist, pwede kang mag-compute ng sample size if meron kang rough estimate kung ilan ba ang community pharmacist, for example, sa Gensan. Tapos, pag alam mo na example 100 lang kabuok, pwede ka mag-compute og sample size ato. So according sa computation 50 lang, so hanapin mo sila as long as dapat community pharmacist sila. And then pwede ka din mag-set ng other inclusion criteria like community pharmacist sila, tapos working talaga sila during the pandemic ha. May basig na ay mga community pharmacist na wala, nag-undang man sila og trabaho during the pandemic, or pwede ding meron kang specify na criteria na community pharmacist sila tapos 1 year na sila nag-work, ganon. Okay? So that's purposive sampling. Now, another one, convenience sampling, or we call this haphazard or incidental sampling. Again, haphazard or incidental sampling. From the name itself, convenience sampling. This is done if you're going to do research and then you will collect data to whoever is available during the time of data collection. So actually, ito yung ginagawa sa mga nagsasurvey sa mall. Diba, usahay natin, maglakaw ta sa mall, tapos parahon ta kay magpa-survey sila. That's convenience sampling kasi during the time na they conducted the survey, nandun ka sa mall, so nasali ka. So kung available ka, kung nagsugot ka, okay, nasali ka sa study nila. That's again, convenience sampling. So there are existing studies ngayon sa, I think sa medtech na yung kanilang sampling technique is convenience sampling. I think it's about the medical technologists na nag-work sa hospital. Kaya lang mag-convenience sampling sila kasi kung sino lang yung mag-duty during the time na pupunta sila sa hospital, yun lang yung mabibigyan nila ng questionnaire. Okay? So again, that is called convenience sampling. It's a non-probability sampling kasi walang equal chance lahat ng members ng population to be selected. So kagaya nun, kung sino lang yung naka-duty sa araw na yun, yun lang yung masaselect. Yun lang yung sasali sa study. I hope nakuha niyo yung difference ni purposive and ni convenience. And then ito, quota sampling. So sa quota sampling, magko-compute pa rin tayo ng sample size nito ha. Example, 10,000 yung population mo. And then after the computation, kailangan mo ng sample na 370. Well, it doesn't matter how are you going to collect the sample, basta maabot, ma-achieve mo yung 370 na target mo. That's quota sampling. Whether magpabalik-balik ka doon sa company and kung sino yung duty, mabibigyan mo, or mag-conduct ka ng study online, kung sino yung may kakilala and so on, ipapabigay mo yung questionnaire mo. So again, it doesn't matter how do you come up with the selected person as long as you will hit the target. That's quota sampling. So nowadays, yung mga mostly nabasa ko na research, sila, quota sampling sila. Kasi nahirapan sila mag probability sampling, nahirapan din sila, hindi din applicable ang purposive, hindi din sila magko-convenience sampling, magko-quota sampling na lang sila. So basta i-achieve nila yung certain number of people na mag-answer sa questionnaire nila, quota sampling ang tawag. Now, sa quota sampling, yun ha, non-probability kasi again, walang equal chance din yung population. lahat ng members ng population kasi bahala ka naman paano mo ma-select basta maabot mo yung total. Okay? Itong snowball sampling, this is another one na non-probability sampling. Ginagamit natin ito if we find it difficult to locate the members of the population. So we will just do it through referral networks. Example, you want to conduct a study about HIV patients. Ilan lang yan sila dito. And their identification is confidential. Even if you go to the hospital will not give you any information about them. So mahihirapan tayo to identify them. Ang ginagawa, snowball sampling na lang, magtatanong-tanong na lang tayo kung meron sa atin may kakilala na HIV patient and then i-refer na lang sila. Pero we need to secure pag nalaman na natin, oh, this certain person is an HIV patient, kailangan mo pa siyang kausapin and syempre sasabihin mo na ito yung study mo, i-orient mo siya and kukunin mo ang kanyang informed consent if he or she wants to be part of your study. Pero the selection process itself is through referral. So snowball sampling ang tawag doon. So kung may nakita ka ng isa, pwede kang mag-ask sa kanya kung may kakilala pa siya and then siya na yung magtuturo sa iyo for your next sample. Again, we call that snowball sampling. So ito, hindi na tayo masyadong makaka-compute nito ng sample size kasi again, mahirap silang hagilapin. That's the only time we do the snowball sampling. Any question about the non-probability sampling technique? Wala. Magasyong jupog nakasabot mo sa ako ang ginapang istorya din he. Basig natulog na mo, nagsige na akong istorya. Okay na ta? Okay na ta, sampling method. We'll now move on to the orientation. This is just an orientation of the different research designs kasi you will have a separate subject for this, your research and thesis writing next year, first semester sa school year, you will have your research. So doon talaga ito i-discuss thoroughly. Pero I will just give you an orientation of the different research design that we can use pag mag-research na mo. Okay? So meron tayong tinatawag class na action research. When you hear these words, action research, it means that we are conducting research to solve a problem. Okay? Again, we are conducting research to solve a problem, meaning we will be looking for a solution to solve a certain problem in a local setting. So example, may problem kayo here sa online class and we want to give solution to it, then ito pwede siyang gawin. Action research. We will look for possible solutions. Now, most of the time, marami ito ngayon, descriptive research. So sa descriptive research, our concern is just to understand the characteristic of the population, pwedeng nature characteristics or components or other aspects of a population or a situation. Example, you want to know the perception of the community sa brand and generic drugs. That's actually a descriptive research kasi we will just describe their perception. We will just understand their perception. Yung mga study na ang study, example, medical fake news and ang tawag dyan, medical fake news and influence sa vaccine hesitancy. That is also a part of a descriptive research kasi we will try to understand the effect or the relationship of fear mongering, I mean the medical fake news, kung meron ba siyang influence doon sa pagpabakuna ng ating mga residents. Example sa GSC, Gensan. Okay? That's descriptive research. Explanatory research, when we want to explain the relationship between variables or pag magpe-predict tayo ng factors. Actually, pwede din siyang part ng descriptive na study. Like for example, academic performance, ang grado ninyo. Ano ba yung makaka-predict sa inyong academic performance? Pwede ba ang study habit? Pwede ba yung ano pa, motivation ninyo? Or pwede bang like may influence ba yung environment or yung family structure? So kung gusto natin malaman ang relationship between these variables, we can call that explanatory research. Exploratory, when we want to explore something na little pa lang yung known data. So actually yung pag-start ng COVID-19, yung pag-start talaga kasi ngayon marami ng research about COVID-19. Pag-start ng COVID-19, actually maraming exploratory research na kinandak. So since little is known about COVID-19 during that time, nag-explore yung mga researcher about that, about the COVID-19. And then correlational research, this is almost similar to the explanatory research. The difference is, sa explanatory, you just want to know the relationship. I want to explain the relationship. Sa correlational research, you want to know the significance of the relationship or association between variables. So iba yon. Explain mo lang itong isa. Ang sa correlational, titingnan mo talaga kung ano yung significance ng relationship na yon. Okay? Anyway, i-discuss ko pa ito sa inyo sa sunod pag mag-conduct na mo research. Evaluation research, when we want to assess something. Example, yung mga TBA sa school, ay TBA, sa tawag ka na. Kalimut ko ka na sa guidance, God, di ba? Wala mo pa-enroll kung wala mo nag-evaluate sa inyo ang mga teachers, right? That is actually an evaluation research. Meaning we are assessing the impact, the effect, or the result, or the outcome nung ginawa ng teacher ninyo, or paano ba siya nagturo sa inyo. That's evaluation research. Actually, nire-report din yan siya sa amin, yung mga answers ninyo. Pero walang pangalan, syempre. Hindi namin alam sino nag-comment na ganito. Pero sinasabi sa amin ang results ng TBA for us also to improve. Kasi baka meron kayong nakita na hindi kami aware. So, malaking tulong din yung evaluation ng students. Okay? And then policy research, most of the time yung institution yung gumagawa nito. Kasi this is for policy making. They will conduct a research in the whole organization on how to make a new policy or how to improve an existing policy, kung effective pa ba siya or hindi. Now, the next one is ex post or causal comparative research. This is actually more on the experimental research kasi we are really going to establish the cause and effect relationship. Like if we give this drug, what will happen to the subject, either human or animal. So that's, again, causal comparative. Pwede din siyang comparative kasi we may compare like the effect of one drug or one agent to another, as long as we will establish na it really causes the effect. Okay, example, hypertensive na effect, anti-hypertensive na effect, or anti-diabetic na effect. And then we have historical research. Siyempre, most of the time, these are done by the historian. Sila yung nag-a-attempt to solve the historical phenomenon nangyari sa past. Either they will collect artifacts, or they will collect documents, or interview someone na merong first-hand experience about that phenomenon. Okay, that is called historical research. Okay, and then we have the so-called ethnographic research when we want to study the behavior the culture or tradition of a certain group of people, a tribe or ethnicity. Okay? So yun yung ethnographic research. I know someone who conducted ethnographic research. Talagang nagstay siya for at least a month sa may somewhere in Sarangani, and then nag-observe siya ng culture and tradition of that certain group of people na nakatira dyan sa certain parts sa Sarangani. That's an ethnographic research. So nag-observe siya kung sa ilang ginabuhat dito. Example, kung naay sakit, paano sila nag-diagnose sa sakit, paano po sila nagatambal og sakit. So included na sa iyahang research. Pero ethnographic ang tawag dyan. And then lastly, phenomenological research. Taas kayo, di ko ganahan sa mga definitions sa book. Ang tandaan nyo lang, phenomenological research is concerned with the experiences. Okay? Most likely, it's concerned about the experiences of our participants to a certain phenomenon. So kagaya ng sinabi ko kanina, na experiences of community pharmacists na nag-work sa pandemic. That is actually a phenomenological research. Kasi ang gusto mong malaman, ano kaya yung experience nila? Meron bang fear? Meron bang anxiety? Meron bang pagbabago yung kanilang trabaho during pandemic and before pandemic? So lahat ng experiences nila itatanong natin. Again, we call that phenomenological research. Actually, that's the end of chapter 1. Any question? Again, any question para sa chapter 1? May part ba dito na hindi maintindihan? Hindi naintindihan? Wala. Sure na.